If you're looking for a carnivore dessert that's simple enough for everyday baking and beautiful enough to serve to guests, these shortbread carnivore cream cookies are a great place to start. Let's head into the kitchen and make them together. For the shortbread cookies, we'll use 1 cup of softened unsalted butter, 3/4 of a cup of skim milk powder, 1/4 cup of egg white protein powder or egg white powder, and 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. And for the cream filling, we'll use 4 ounces of mascarpone cheese, 1/2 teaspoon of gelatin powder, 1/8 of a cup of heavy cream, and for flex carnivores, you can use a teaspoon of raw honey, of course this is optional, and 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. We'll begin by preheating the oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. Add the softened butter to a mixing bowl and beat until it's smooth and creamy. Butter is the foundation of this recipe, providing both flavor and a delicate texture that makes shortbread so enjoyable. One of the things I love about recipes like this is how simple a few ingredients can come together to create something that looks more elaborate than it actually is. If you've ever made carnivore shortbread before, you may be surprised how closely it resembles a traditional bakery-style cookie. It's also a great reminder that carnivore desserts don't need a long list of ingredients to feel special. Sometimes the simplest recipes end up becoming the ones that you make again and again. Next, we'll add the sea salt, milk powder, and egg white powder, mixing everything together until a soft dough forms. The milk powder helps create the classic shortbread texture, while the egg white powder adds structure and helps the cookies hold their shape. As the ingredients come together, you'll notice the dough becoming smooth and easy to work with. One of the things I really appreciate about this recipe is that there are no complicated techniques involved. The dough comes together quickly and is very forgiving, making it a great option for both new and experienced bakers. At this stage, we're looking for a consistency that is soft, pliable, and holds together when pressed between your fingers. For baking the shortbread cookies, we'll be using a platinum silicone mold. The mold features a shallow well in the center that will later hold the cream filling. If you don't have this exact mold, other shapes can certainly be used, provided they create enough space for the filling. And for added stability, I'll place the mold on a ceramic-coated baking sheet. This also helps catch any butter that may release from the dough during baking, making cleanup much easier. We'll now divide the dough evenly between the 6 wells of the mold. Take a moment to press the dough firmly into each cavity, making sure it reaches the edges and forms an even layer throughout. As you work, be careful to maintain the center depression, as this will eventually hold our cream filling. A well-defined center not only improves the presentation, but it also ensures that each cookie can hold a generous amount of filling. Please visit carnivorecollections.com for the full recipe card and nutritional breakdown. I'll leave a link in the description below. Once all 6 wells are filled, give them a final gentle press to smooth the surfaces and create a uniform shape. From here, we'll place the mold in the refrigerator for about 15 minutes to firm the dough up. Then we'll bake for 14 to 16 minutes or until the edges are lightly golden. Remove the cookies from the oven and allow them to cool in the mold for about 20 minutes. Here you can see some of the butter that has released naturally from the dough during baking. This is completely normal with a high butter shortbread recipe and is one of the reasons we're using a baking sheet underneath the mold. Once the cookies have cooled, we'll gently remove them from the mold and transfer them to a cooling rack. At this point, they should be firm enough to handle while still remaining delicate and tender. Allowing them to further cool helps the texture finish setting and makes them easier to fill later on. You can see how well their center wells have kept their shape, creating that perfect space for the cream filling. The finished cookies should have lightly golden edges and a classic shortbread appearance. And now we'll prepare the cream filling. We'll start by blooming the gelatin, which helps stabilize the filling and allow it to hold its shape once it's piped into the cookies. Simply sprinkle the gelatin over the water and allow it to sit for a few minutes while it absorbs the liquid. As it blooms, it will become softer and gel-like, making it easier to incorporate into the filling. Once fully bloomed, we'll gently warm the gelatin until it becomes smooth and liquid again. Then set it aside briefly while we're preparing the other ingredients. The next step is to blend the mascarpone cheese and heavy cream together in a mixing bowl. I enjoy using a hand mixer for this step as it helps incorporate everything evenly and creates a smooth, consistent texture, although you can definitely beat it by hand. If you're using a hand mixer, we'll mix on low speed until it becomes light and fluffy. Be careful not to overmix, as mascarpone can become grainy if whipped too aggressively. Once the mixture is smooth, we'll slowly add the melted gelatin and continue mixing until everything is fully incorporated. If you're going with a Flex Carnivore version, this is where you can add the vanilla and raw honey. At this point, we'll transfer the filling to a piping bag, which makes it much easier to create a clean and decorative finish on the cookies. Here I'm using a 12-inch piping bag fitted with a decorative piping tip to create the swirls. Even a simple swirl pattern can elevate the presentation and makes these cookies look beautifully finished. We'll now pour the filling into a bag, and since the filling will be a bit soft, this will be placed in the refrigerator for 15 minutes to firm up slightly before piping. Chilling helps the filling hold its shape and produces more defined swirls. With the filling nicely firmed up, we're ready to pipe it onto the shortbread cookies. The chilled mascarpone cream holds its shape well, allowing us to create clean, decorative swirls in the center of each cookie. One of the things that I've enjoyed about developing carnivore recipes is finding ways to recreate familiar foods using a much simpler ingredient list. When I first started experimenting in the kitchen, I never imagined that a few basic ingredients could be transformed into desserts like this. Some recipes came together quickly, while others took multiple rounds of testing and small adjustments before everything fell into place. This shortbread recipe was one of those pleasant surprises where the texture and flavor came together beautifully. It's always rewarding when a recipe not only looks well, but also becomes something you're excited to share with family, friends, and all of you watching at home. We'll refrigerate these for 30 minutes to allow the filling to fully set. And here we have our Carnivore Shortbread Cream Cookies. The cookies are beautifully set and hold their shape exceptionally well. As I cut one open, you can clearly see the buttery shortbread paired with that smooth mascarpone cream filling. The contrast between the crisp cookie and the creamy center is what makes this dessert so enjoyable. These are the kind of treats that look right at home on a dessert tray, yet are made with a handful of simple ingredients. Thank you so much for spending time with me in the kitchen today. If you'd like the free recipe card, complete instructions, and nutritional breakdown, be sure to visit carnivorecollections.com. And if you enjoyed this recipe, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. I'll see you again soon.